Finally, the last video on kill streaks. Jesus fucking Christ. I think I've been talking about this shit for weeks now. Now, the gameplay you're watching some old-ass footage from when I used to play Modern Warfare 3 a few years ago in this joint, and I have two old-ass gameplays, which for all I know could be repeat videos. Nah, what happened was, I wanted to use the video submissions that people have been sending in, but people listen to me perfectly, and they send me videos that are right around the 10-minute mark or so, and this video is obviously a little long, so all the gameplay footages were just a bit too short, and they were a bit too long to actually combine two gameplays into one video. So to make a long story short, I talk too damn much. Anyways, we get into the final topic of the vehicles that I have in this motherfucker, and like I said, there are two groups of vehicles. We have computer-controlled ones where you do nothing, you sit back and let them kill, and then we have user-controlled ones where you take control of the targeting mechanism and you kill bitches on the map. Now, as previously stated, all of these are 10-point kill streaks, 1,000-point score chain, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and all of them will be your final kill streak earned. None of the kills will carry over to your next kill streak. None of these items can be combined with any other vehicle because they will be their own badass reward to kill shit. First up is self-explanatory shit, and these are the 4 computer-controlled streaks that will do their own thing on the map. First up, we have a Harrier or some kind of similar jet. It doesn't have to be the Harrier, but it's something at least similar to a fucking jet. We have a Pablo or something similar to a chopper like a Pablo. Doesn't have to be the Pablo. AH-6 Overwatch or something similar like I mentioned, and the AGR type ground assault vehicle. Now, I'm not going to spend too much detail on the shit you guys already know, because there's really no point beating you over the head with ideas that you guys are already used to. So I'm just going to briefly run through the first 3 items. Similar to the Harrier of Modern Warfare 2, there has to be some kind of jet that will shoot enemies on the ground. But unlike Modern Warfare 2, I want this jet to move around a bit. In fucking Modern Warfare 2, it would just like sit there and wait to get shot out of the sky and shit like that. So it needs a bit more mobility in this motherfucker. It also doesn't have to ride with its own airstrike because we've already seen there are airstrikes in the game already. So I don't want to have that from Modern Warfare 2. But I do want a jet that moves around the map at a fairly reasonable pace and it has some flares to avoid launchers or some shit like that. Basically, it has to be upgraded to feel worthy of a 10-point kill streak. Also included is a Pablo type chopper, or at least something as powerful as a Pablo. I mean, seriously, this motherfucker can be a monster in the sky when you call this bitch in. Now, I know people are going to say, well, the Pablo's been decommissioned for the longest time, and it's not in service anymore. You know, regardless of that fact, I said I would want something like a Pablo. It doesn't have to be the Pablo. I just want something that kicks as much ass as this motherfucker does. Next up is the AH-6 Overwatch, and that also turned out, okay, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Again, these aren't actual names you have to call these shits. It's just an idea. I want a chopper that will follow you and cover you where you go. You know, this was a cool addition to Modern Warfare 3 because it actually provided your vehicle with another objective, including points of attack. As long as you were moving around and heading towards enemies, this motherfucker did some work. And it did a pretty decent job protecting you when it was in the air. So this little combo of a vehicle and a kill streak was perfect for the running gunner who liked to move around the map and liked to be protected by some extra air support. The final computer-controlled item is the one people are going to argue with me about, and this is the AGR type ground assault vehicle. I know the initial reaction is going to be, why on earth is this not a user-controlled vehicle? And the reason is pretty simple. This item will follow you around similar to the AH-6, but only on the ground. And it's going to have some major differences and advances to the version we've seen in Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2. First advantage to this joint is that it will not be affected by the limit of air support in the sky. Right now, the game caps the limit of vehicles you can have flying around, which is something I completely agree with. This will not be affected by that since it's on the ground. If you call in a Pablo, that means someone else can't call in their chopper gunner, but they can call this motherfucker in. Air support will not have effect on whether you can have this sucker on the ground. The only limitation is you obviously can't have 2 AGRs at the same time. That's the only limit I would put on this motherfucker. Plus, I would stock this bitch with some awesome fucking toys. First, being a minigun. Similar to the sentry gun we now have at the 5 kill streak mark. You guys know what I'm talking about. That will be its primary weapon. It's also going to have rockets to fire at enemies and a trophy system built in for protection against incoming equipment. Now, the sentry gun will also have a 360-degree target recognition. In other words, enemies can't just sneak up on this bitch and shoot it in the asshole, get some surprise butt sex on this motherfucker. If you roll up behind one of these, it's gonna detect you and it's gonna start shooting you. Also, for the purposes of speed, this is also gonna be a pretty fast motherfucker on the ground too. I want this to be able to keep up with the actual person that called it in. So if a person is running, this son of a bitch is going to be able to at least keep up with somebody who's running full speed. The final advantage this sucker will have on the ground is that unlike air support items, this will not require a UAV to recognize enemies. Being on the ground means better target recognition, so it will be able to identify the enemies without the need of a UAV. In other words, this sumbitch is powerful, but What are the drawbacks to this? Well, for starters, it actually has to find enemies on the map. You know, unlike a flying vehicle that has a bird's eye view of a larger portion of the map, this kick-ass tank can only shoot what it sees on the ground. If it's nowhere near an enemy, there's nothing to kill. Another drawback is the susceptibility to the owner dying and having to find them again. The AH-6 Overwatch, it flies overhead, so it can get across the map pretty quickly by basically going over all the buildings. If you die, your machine is going to try and find you afterwards. It can't go through buildings. It can't warp to find you. While it moves along the map trying to find you, it will continue to still recognize and kill enemies. But your buddy for protection is now nowhere near you, and its main objective is going to be to try to make its way back to you so that it can protect you. Basically, this is going to be the kick-ass tank that we've been missing from the series for years. Now, as previously stated, all the computer control streaks are part of the traditional system that includes the airstrikes and the surveillance group. Since all of these are 10-point kill streaks, you basically pick which one you want to be your final kill streak, whether you want the Harrier, the Pablo, the AH-6, or Johnny 5 Alive tank in this motherfucker. Basically, they will finish up your traditional system. And like I mentioned prior, they will only go after enemies if a UAV or some kind of advanced UAV is up and running, or if the enemy is shooting an unsilenced gun and becomes recognizable to the vehicle. If you do not have any kind of radar or surveillance up and running, the motherfucker isn't gonna do shit. With the exception of Johnny 5 Alive. That's the only one that will have an advantage without a UAV. The other three, the flying vehicles, are gonna require UAV to actually recognize enemies on the ground. Moving on, the fourth and final group has 4 items as well, and they will also be the 10-point kill streak, 1,000-point score chain, whatever the fuck you want to call these shits. And these are your user-controlled vehicles. We're going to start with the Chopper Gunner, Reaper, Lodestar, whatever you want to call this motherfucker, an improved AC-130, and a controllable Harrier or similar type jet. Now, the Chopper Gunner is pretty self-explanatory, and it's going to continue to remain on the set path that you do not control. Basically, point, shoot, and fire this motherfucker. It's going to take the least amount of brain power of the 4 vehicles. The Reaper, Lodestar type weapon, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it will be back, and it's also going to receive a small upgrade. I would give this shit the option to take full control of a missiler similar to the Hellfire missile I mentioned in the airstrike video. So if you wanted, you can literally take control and fly that motherfucker through a window, a doorway, whatever you want, and get somebody hiding in a room. Now, of course, there is a downside to this, though. By taking control of the missiles, it's actually going to take up more time than just firing the missile to the floor as normal. You have the option to choose either firing mechanism. You could fire the rocket straight to the floor and just guide it along, or you can choose to fully control every single missile. The problem is, you only have a set amount of time and a set amount of missiles that you will be firing. So there's a good chance that if you tried to control every single missile, you would lose time firing all of them. So that's going to be a strategic choice you need to make when you call this motherfucker in. How many do you fire to the ground, and how many do you take full control over? Next up is my improved AC-130, and this motherfucker comes with a big surprise. You know the howitzer shot it fires? That big motherfucking bomb, the big one of the 3 types? Well, that sumbitch will be a bunker buster bomb. Yes, a shot built to get people out of buildings like the airstrike I mentioned in the prior video. Now, obviously, this is something that would be insanely overpowered. So, I would limit the AC-130 to 2 bunker busters per flight. That's all you would get. So once you call the motherfucker in, you only get 2 shots of these. The other bombs and the other gun will remain the same. There'll be no change to those. But that big bomb that you normally get that you can fire around to an open field, now you can only get 2 of these shits. The big advantage over this from the airstrike is that you can still fire the bunker buster bomb into an open field. Unlike the actual airstrike where you have to target a building, this one allows you to shoot it wherever you want. But if you shoot it at a building and somebody is in the building, they will die, just like the bunker buster I mentioned yesterday. The regular bombs and the Gatling guns, like I mentioned, will work the same way. Fire off a couple bombs, shoot your Gatling gun, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But the big bomb is now going to be the bunker buster. So that one's going to be improved so that people can get motherfuckers out of buildings. So if you call on your AC-130 and all of a sudden everybody runs for cover, now you can at least get them out of those buildings. The final option is a controllable Harrier. And yes, Battlefield fans, you can bitch all you want that I am copying this shit, because I totally am. Although, in all fairness, Black Ops 1 had a controllable chopper that allowed you to move around and shit. So basically, I'm combining the ideas from Modern Warfare 2's Harrier and Black Ops 1's movable chopper and shit like that. This would work sort of in the same way, with you maneuvering the jet around the map as you please, shooting enemies as you want. Plus, you will have control over the flares to distract launchers that lock onto you. You can certainly attempt to avoid launchers by flying past them and whatnot, but you have full control over the flares as well as the weapons on board, whether it's missiles, a railgun, you name it. I would add some kind of big ass weapon up in this motherfucker. Now, as I previously stated, these 4 items are only located in the killer system. If you want these badass vehicles, you will have to select the killer system, which only allows you to take 1 vehicle. And as stated, there are some advantages and disadvantages, so you need to choose wisely. The user-control vehicles will last longer than the computer-controlled vehicles, giving them one huge advantage. As far as timing, let's just say as an example that the computer-controlled vehicles are 45 seconds and the user-controlled is the full minute. Whatever. This is not exact science. This is merely a suggestion. The user-controlled vehicles will last a lot longer than the computer-controlled ones. Now, one of the biggest complaints I saw in the comments section was the required use of a UAV for user-controlled streaks to get that red box around enemy targets. And there are a few reasons why I had to do this. A future video is going to discuss how Call of Duty has conditioned us towards kill whoring, so I'll address that part of the argument in another video. But my main concern was removing blind eye. I mean, seriously, doesn't it tell you something about these developers that they had to create a perk separate from avoiding UAVs just to avoid air support? I mean, to me, it's been a domino effect of bad choices done by both studios. Modern Warfare 2 ramped up the kill streak, so they had to add cold-blooded to the game to pretty much avoid fucking everything. Black Ops 1 decided to remove stopping power, which was in fact the balance to having air support avoiding perks. If you wanted to avoid air support, you had to sacrifice gunpowder to kill people. But as we all know, Ghost became so fucking abused as a perk that it rendered almost everything else in its tier useless. Modern Warfare 3 came through and introduced Blind Eye. Let's keep stopping power out of the game, but let's give people a separate perk to avoid shit. On top of that, let's make Assassin one of the best and easiest perks to acquire in the game to use and shit like that. Black Ops 2 goes one step further and adds Hardwire. Well, fuck it, let's add another goddamn perk that affects kill streaks. Because that's the resolution since Infinity Ward jacked up the kill streaks. Give us more perks. I don't want more perks to avoid shit. Instead of giving us extra perks, just make the kill streaks balanced instead. That's why my idea of using UAV affects your air support. If the UAV is running, then vehicles can detect enemies. I mean, just from a realism standpoint, a chopper flies in from off the map. How the fuck does the pilot or the gunner know who the enemies are? I mean, you have a flying plane dropping bombs thousands of feet off the ground. They know who the enemies are from the friendlies? No! They need some kind of surveillance or intelligence that points out who the bad guys are. Hence, the use of the UAV. Blind Eye is gone in my system. Common sense from vehicles is now in charge. And as much as people want to bitch about this idea, what other fucking option is there at this point? You want more perks to avoid shit? You want more items people can use to avoid every single fucking kill streak? Because those are the only options left. And that's the direction both these asshole developers have been taking. This stops this cycle of adding perks to avoid kill streaks. Now, in regards to people's argument about not having their own UAV when they control an AC-130 and having to depend on teammates and whatnot. Initially, I had surveillance items and user control vehicles together. And I realized someone could take like a SAM turret and a Reaper, which makes no fucking sense at all. So then I thought about a UAV only and the 10 kill streak. I honestly thought this would solve the issue. Then 2 problems came up. First, someone playing for kills only would always hold on to the UAV until they got their AC-130. And basically, they would just use it for selfish reasons. And second, why would anyone take the traditional system for what? 1 fucking fart bomb? That's the only benefit you would get out of the traditional system is an airstrike. So to balance out support, traditional, and killer, I had to figure out what would make people choose one over the other. What would appeal to people when selecting these, and the best option was removing the UAV from the killer system and just leaving it as the 10-point kill streak. Now, it's not a dumbed-down traditional item. Now, people won't save UAVs just for themselves because they want more kills. Now, there's actually a bit of required teamwork. It's not going to all of a sudden make strangers play like a team, we know that. But it sure as hell makes you assess how you approach games now, doesn't it? Now, I know some comments have said, well, I can't depend on randoms for a UAV. Well, put it this way. If you didn't take a UAV either, what gives you the right to criticize someone else, motherfucker? If they took a Reaper and you took an AC-130, you gonna blame them for doing the same shit as you? I mean, do you really think 5 other players in the room are going to take the killer system and not one single person will take a traditional support item at all? I mean, come on, let's be real here. Rarely you will see 6 people take the exact same system. The bitching about this is probably so overblown because I've thought of advantages towards taking surveillance items in prior videos. Honestly, I blame the developers for this brainwashing. Here I am, introducing a concept of teamwork and balance, and the immediate reaction is, wait, I might not get that many kills? That's exactly what every fucking complaint sounds like when all you care about is your score and how randoms aren't helping you. When they have the same exact right to criticize you for doing the same shit. This is what the Call of Duty community has reduced itself to. How do these items give me more kills? That's the first thing that people think about. That mentality is what's killing the franchise year after year after year. But like I said, that's going to be a full topic for another video because I'm finished with kill streaks. This is it. Fuck it. I'm done. No more kill streaks. I do not want to talk about this shit again. So anyway, next video in the Blueprint series, we're moving on to something different because I'm tired of talking about this bullshit. So anyway, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And be sure to stay tuned for more videos which will not talk about kill streaks.